Hey, this is Kampai Cam, and I'm in Kyushu, the southern island of Japan, to climb Mount Yufu. Now, this is pretty different to any hike I've done before because it's very exposed, it's very volcanic. There's a crater at the top that you circumnavigate to get to the twin peaks and the apparently incredible views. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Let's get on the trail.
Wait, hold on a second there, me. While we head across this grassy plain, drawn inexorably by the siren song of the mountain before us, let me just give you a little background information about today's hike. Getting to the main trailhead is simple. It's not far from both Yufu City and Beppu, but if you've never been to this part of Japan before, I'd recommend staying in the latter. Beppu, after all, is one of Japan's most famous hot spring towns, and the bus out here takes less than 40 minutes from Beppu Station. This path that I'm currently walking along is the main route up Mount Yufu, and it takes about 2 hours to reach the summit. So if you get a bus early enough, I caught one at about 7:30, you'll have the afternoon free to see the sights of Beppu. We'll get to some of those later in the video, by the way. A couple of notes in terms of prep. Make sure you grab food and drink before you hop on the bus, as that's your last chance. Also make sure you gear up appropriately for the season, and just in general, as the mountaintop is pretty exposed. Suitable clothes, wet weather gear, sunscreen and insect repellent if the weather's warm, you know the deal. And while it might be tempting to bring those Seinfeld nesting dolls, they're a laugh riot after all.
Hey everybody, who's ready to laugh?
You don't want to be over encumbered, particularly if you're going to hit the West Peak, as it involves a little rock climbing. With all that out of the way, let's leave the open and dive into the forest, in which a typically rocky Japanese trail awaits, and where dappled light shines through a luminous green canopy as we walk.
It's been a great climb so far. Really rocky paths, but wending your way through these dappled forests and then emerge into these panoramic, incredible vistas. Can't wait to see what it looks like at the top.
Congratulations, you've climbed Mount Yufu, only you haven't quite yet. You've reached Matae, a section of the mountain's crater that forms a saddle between the western peak and the eastern. Those peaks will take you to the true summit of Yufu, 1,583 metres above sea level. I chose to head to the west peak first, but how you want to tackle the crater really depends on how comfortable you are with a little light rock climbing. As someone who's a complete novice in this area, I found the climb on the west side with its chains and pretty serious drops a little on the intense side, but it was definitely rewarding, and as is the way on Japanese trails, there were hikers who would easily have been in their 60s and 70s also taking this path, so I figured what could possibly go wrong and just took it slow. And of course, the true reward is the view. Just take a look at this. The West Peak panorama takes in an incredible landscape of forests, mountains and pastoral land. A valley nestled amongst mountain peaks, meandering back into the distance as far as you can see. The sprawl of Yufu City below, again with layer upon layer of forests and mountains stretching to the horizon behind it. Even the crater itself is breathtaking. It's absolutely massive and completely overgrown. There's enough room up at the western peak to have a picnic, by the way, so if you brought food, now's a good time to crack it. From here, it's possible to go around the back of the crater to reach the eastern peak, but it sounded a little on the sketchy side, so I opted to head back down the way I came and to climb to the eastern peak from the junction below. This ascent is much easier than to the west. And on clear days, you'll be able to take in nearby Mount Tsurumi, as well as look out across Beppu Bay. Not today, but the view of the winding road connecting Beppu to Yufu with Mount Kuraki behind it made the climb well worth it. Fingers crossed the insects aren't as bad when you do it though. Coming back down, meanwhile, is a joy, as you can really appreciate the view as you move along the many switchbacks. One note though, the buses heading back to Beppu are a little sporadic. Sometimes there's 2 in an hour, sometimes only 1. In any case, this is the point at which I realised that if I missed the next bus, I'd have to wait around for an hour, so I wound up running. Well, jogging quickly the rest of the way. And to think, on the way up, I thought that this guy was some kind of crazy fit trail runner, when in actuality he was just late for the bus. Before we head back to Beppu, a quick sidebar about the nearby city of Yufu, as it holds a pretty interesting event each year in mid-October. It's called, and I'm not kidding, the Eat Beef and Scream competition, and has been a local tradition since 1976. According to the Oita Heritage website, it's basically a big barbecue where people enter a lottery to have the chance to shout out a message at the top of their lungs. The lucky 100 or so that get picked are then judged not only on volume, but also on the uniqueness of what they have to say. I love this idea, but not so much to scream about protecting Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution or shouting out a marriage proposal, both of which have happened, more to be like, has anyone seen my keys? Or perhaps, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? Given all the Yufu cider being drunk, if you get a late slot, I reckon you could kill. Anyway, why is this an event at all? Well, way back when, this pastoral land was in danger of being sold, as the local livestock farmers were in financial difficulty. The community started an initiative called the Single Cow Owners Ranch Campaign, which asked people from around Japan to become cow owners in order to save the land. It was a success, and these newfound casual cowpokes were then invited to a barbecue party each year in the very highlands they helped maintain. These days, anyone can attend the party, but the choice of food retains that local focus, with Oita Wagyu beef, Yufuin cider, and more. So there you go, put the Eat Beef and Scream competition on your list of stuff to do in Oita Prefecture if you're there in October. Now, let's travel back to Beppu, and I think it's high time for a bite to eat and a soak. From Beppu Station... Yep, that's how they always say it. So good. We're heading out to Kannawa, one of the main hot spring districts. By far the easiest way to get there is by bus, but I'm a glutton for punishment with a JR pass in my pocket, plus I wanted to hear that delightful announcer again. So I got the train to Beppu Daigaku and walked. It wasn't an entirely silly thing to do, thankfully, as along the way I stopped off for a ridiculously indulgent Donburi bowl. At this restaurant, you choose 2 fillings from the menu, and they're the topping for your bowl, so I went with salmon and fatty tuna, and both positively melted in my mouth. Uishikatta desu. My next stop is Kannawa Mushiyu, or Kannawa Steam Bath. Founded by a Buddhist monk named Ippen Shonin in 1276, it's a traditional sauna with a secret weapon, sekisho. Known in English as Japanese sweet flag, licorice grass, and a handful of other names, sekisho has long been used across Japan, China, and parts of Southeast Asia in both cooking and in medicine. Here, its leaves are spread across the floor of the sauna room, giving it an intoxicating scent as you sizzle. But first, let's rewind. Before even entering, you may want to visit the statue of Mushiyu's founder outside. Why? Well, it's said that you can cure any ailments you're suffering by pouring water onto the relevant part of his figure before going for your steam bath. Sadly, he wasn't able to cure me of my intense narcissism, but to be fair, I poured the water on myself because it's all about me. Once inside Kannawa Mushiyu, you can purchase tickets from the vending machine on the right. You're looking at 700 yen for the sauna and bath afterwards, 220 yen for a yukata to wear in the sauna, and then extra for a tiny towel rental. And if you have any valuables on you, it's 100 yen to use the locker, which you don't get back. Cheeky. The staff are very friendly, and while they didn't speak much English, they made good use of real-time voice translation to guide me through the process. Given the saunas only fit a handful of people, you're taken through in small groups, and by necessity, it feels a bit like a production line. First, you're ushered into the changing room where you strip, then rinse yourself with water and put on a yukata. You then go through a hatch into the low-ceilinged sauna room, which has sekisho spread liberally on the floor. Simply lay down with your head on one of the stones, and you've got 8 minutes to relax and enjoy the scent while you gradually build up a good sweat. Once you come out, you can then wash yourself thoroughly in the adjoining room and have a soak in its small bath. This water, incidentally, is properly hot. If you actually want to hang around for a bit, you'll need to blast yourself with cold water at the washing stations to counteract the heat, or go and sit outside. Kannawa Steam Bath is not the best value overall, but was definitely worth doing as I felt great afterwards. And for my tattooed brethren, for once, you're good to go too. Other options for those looking for something a little different to a standard onsen in Beppu include mud baths and sand baths, but even just walking around this part of town is pretty incredible, with steam venting out of buildings all over the place, not to mention rising up out of grates in the ground. It creates an atmosphere unlike anything I've experienced before. My next destination? Hell. Well, a hell. Did you know there were 7 in Beppu? Yes, the Beppu Hells Tour, or Jigoku Meguri, is one of the city's biggest attractions. They're called hells because the water at these locations is so hot you'd wind up deep fried if you tried to bathe in them. Each has a unique appeal. There's the geyser of Tatsumaki, the blood pond of Chinoike, the white emerald water of Shiraike, the crocodiles of Oniyama, the drinkable onsen water and other attractions of Kamado, and the bubbling mud of Oniishi-no-Yu. Each hell costs 450 yen to enter, or you can buy a pass for all 7 for 2,200 yen. I only had time to visit one, so I chose Umi Jigoku, also known as Sea Hell. As you can see, the grounds are beautiful, and the only hint that your peaceful garden stroll might be something more comes from the plumes of steam rising in the distance, and the mildly sulphurous but not unpleasant smell in the air. Before you get to the hell part though, this section of Umi Jigoku is framed by a large pond filled with royal water lilies. These are grown in the facility's greenhouse and then transferred to the pond, eventually growing to a diameter of about 165 centimeters in summer. They grow so large that Umi Jigoku holds an event during Obon Festival that lets little kids actually stand on them. Sadly, I was unable to test how sturdy the lilies were by late May, as it was surprisingly difficult to grab any nearby kids to toss onto a lily, and after being kicked out a couple of times, I gave up on the idea. The main attraction here is this cobalt blue pond. The water is drawn from a spring vein more than 200 meters deep and bubbles up at a piping hot 98 degrees Celsius. The brilliant colour, incidentally, comes from the water's naturally high levels of iron sulfate and is the reason this hot spring is known as Sea Hell. See that pole there? It's used to pop a cage full of eggs into the water to boil them. They're then sold as a snack in the park. On one side of the pool is a number of torii gates leading to a small shrine, which is said to bring blessings for family safety, business prosperity, and traffic safety. It covers quite a few bases. Umi Jigoku also has a red hell, which is pretty spectacular in its own right. And if you want to experience the healing properties of this location's water, then the hot springs for the legs, aka the foot bath, is a great way to end your time in Sea Hell. Before we leave this area, just a quick note to say that there's an onsen you may want to visit very close to here. Called Oniishi-no-Yu, as the name suggests, it's right next to Oniishi-bozu Jigoku, and has both indoor and open-air bathing as well as private baths that can be booked. Its natural sodium chloride spring water is purported to have numerous health benefits, but it's also just a lovely setting. The price is 600 yen for adult admission to the public baths, plus extra if you need a towel. My last destination for the day is a viewing platform over to the east of the Kannawa district. With almost 2,300 hot springs in Beppu and 80,000 litres of water bubbling up per minute, the city is the largest hot spring producer in Japan, and I wanted to get more of a sense of that. Walking over offered some great vantage points out over the city, but the view from the Yukemuri Observatory, which is a pretty fancy name for a small concrete structure and a couple of benches, is pretty special. From here you can see countless plumes of steam venting into the air, illustrating just how geothermally active this area is and making the whole city feel alive. You can also get a great sense of the wider landscape, from the view across the urban sprawl to Mount Tsurumi rising up behind the city. This observatory is also a scenic place to see the city at night, or so I'm led to believe. So that's Beppu, or more accurately, a tiny fraction of Beppu. It's heaven for an onsen lover like myself, and with Mount Yufu so close to the city, well worth a visit for hikers too. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I guess all that's left to do is to sincerely say that I want you all to go to hell. This message brought to you by Beppu Tourism. And I'll leave you with 30 Seconds of Serenity Now.
And the pilot always comes on with his little announcements. I'm going over this, I'm going over that. I'm taking a left, I'm bringing it up, I'm taking it down. I'm going right, I'm going this way, I'm going that way. And we're back there. Yeah, that's all fine. Just do whatever the hell you gotta do. I don't know what the hell is going on. Do I bother him? Do I go knocking on the cockpit door? I'm having the peanuts now. Just thought you might like to know what we're doing.